thanks to both of you, first of all, for bringing these two wonderful films. I'll start with you, Ilja. We have seen the film, maybe with an anecdote from my side, since I'm teaching in an architecture school. We were showing that to some of my students, and it was really a great experience, because after this film they were all discussing, like, is it real? Is it real? Was he really an architect? And actually, what was even better about it was that they were thinking, like, what could we become after seeing this? Like, maybe we are not getting architects, maybe we're getting rappers. So maybe you can start with some words about how you started the project, what was the idea for the project, and how it came to life.
Yeah. There was this holy trinity of my dad's bookshop and Dr. Dre and the rumor that he started to become an architect. And that trinity was intriguing enough to set off, and it took off from there, basically. Now it's one of my oldest works, one of my oldest video works. And seeing it 5 years later, it was made in Stockholm, and the globe in the end of the video is a famous sports arena in Stockholm, so that's kind of the shout-outs to Stockholm.
You involve the question of your own history in it, of course. Was it basically a question that was relating to the rap, or was it also kind of the thing that you were thinking about, like in terms of the architectural part?
Maybe, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I still remember that you had other works before that you were relating to the question of social housing.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe you can talk a little about that. Was that kind of like a starting point, working with these questions of social housing and the impact of social housing, that brought you to this question as well?
I think so. I wanted to understand. I mean, I was quite young at the time, and I'm definitely not an expert, but it was a starting point in my work, because it was the first thing I made that I really did for myself, for something that I truly enjoyed in my fields of interest as well, and definitely led on to the making of the hoodumentary, which is like 22-minute long homage to a series of ex-ghettos in Amsterdam, but also about the potential, about the theater stage of. So the notion of ghetto fab maybe has been more juicy to me than the theories itself, but of course it helps to with the dry tone also. It gives it more space for the viewer as well.
Could you explain the term you coined, like the hoodumentary?
Yes.
And of course, when we see like something like you have shown today, it's like the question is like how much of it is like, real? What is real? What you have all the reference point. The question of the mockumentary, of course, as a reference point comes up, and then you coin a different term, saying like the hoodumentary.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
I like that one. It was really attempt to, pseudo create a new genre, the hoodumentary, which is a combination of hood and documentary. I think it came from a lot of what I was watching at the time as well. These homemade 10-15 minute pieces from, everything from Atlanta to Denmark, and I've kind of riffed and resonated off that, I think, as well. The hoodumentary has only been made once so far, but it's also been used as a title for many other as an alter ego and as a double fake identity and so on. So
the question, but then as well, the question for the hood, the question of architecture plays a key role there as well.
Yeah, definitely. A hoodumentary is a lot about growing up in a 3-room apartment with a very specific type of low ceiling, and of course that affects the way you experience the world 3-dimensional, of course. And so yeah.
So coining this and bringing this into life,
as
a challenge for the thing that you also have as a resonating point here.
Truly, and it's something we all have an understanding of or a perception of. So it's and it's all equal, I think.
Good. Should we continue with you, John? That was fantastic to see your film, and I said before, it was very surprising, but also very lovely. It's like, seeing this very personal momentum, and one of the things that all of my films are very personal, but there's a specific, of course, dynamic to that. Maybe you can talk about the starting point and how it relates to some of your other works then.
Yeah, I mean, all of my work really tends to come out of personal experience and things that I encounter in life. And in a sense, my father sort of made this film for me. Well, he certainly started it off pretty well. And my father died there's a lot of text in the film which is sort of already explained, but just to repeat a little bit, my father died only a short while after showing me this stick, and I think probably about 3 months before he died, I went round to his house, and he said, "Hey, John, you might like to see something that I've done," and I was quite surprised when he showed me that he's sawn through this paint stick he'd been using for, as it turned out, probably about 50 years to stir paint when he decorated the house. And it was a kind of very poignant thing for me, because when I looked at these layers of colour, which of course are like tree rings, like a history of the time, I could identify some of these colours from my childhood, from the rooms that I lived in. And actually halfway through the stick, there's this tangerine orange colour, which is very 60s colour, that actually our hallway was painted when I was about 12, 15, you know. And so I was quite astounded to look at this thing and think, well, this goes back more than 50 years. And it's only literally 1.5, 2 centimeters wide. It's just very, very, very magnified. And of course, when my father died shortly after that, it became kind of rather more poignant for me. And I think he wasn't well at the time, and I think he was looking back at his life. He spent a lot of time looking at old photographs of the family, and because both my mother and my brother died a long time, both unexpectedly. 15 years before him. So he had a lot of morose times in life. And I got this feeling maybe he's sort of, looked at the photographs so many times that he needed to look back in another way. After he died, I kind of felt that I sort of wanted to make a film about him in some way. But I didn't really know where to begin. There are so many things, that one can start. And so I just put it aside, and 5 years later, I just I thought, wow, I've got to do something with this thing, sort of and it seemed to be a vehicle to make something through very simple means, which hopefully says quite a lot, and not just about my father, but universally, I hope, in relation to things that we lose, and things that take on histories and.
So, and also what is, of course, like the misleading question of misleading or misguiding. And of course, we all in the beginning think that the painting is, of course, like maybe he has been a painter. And there is, of course, this kind of twist that's always very important for you. This goes along with the kind of humor. Is it a way that you need to insert in this in terms of distracting a little the intensity of the material and the history in a certain way? Would you say it like that?
Yeah, well, I'm very interested in ambiguity, and actually I can't resist with film actually kind of setting up certain expectations which turn out to be something else. And I do it in some way in almost everything I do, and in fact it's quite embarrassing when I show a whole program of work, because people think, oh God, he's doing it again, But anyway, I enjoy doing that. But also I kind of hopefully it gives one an engagement in that. Literally in this film, where you're not really sure what you're looking at, or you realise later that you're looking at something different. But I'm interested in films where, in many ways, you're not quite sure what you're looking at. That can't necessarily be placed within a particular genre, or So I guess the narrative aspect of that is a parallel to those sorts of ideas about not necessarily understanding what one's looking at and turning out to be something else. And I like the kind of game playing of the puzzle of a film, really, the way in which one puts things together. So,
as you said, like this ambiguity, it seems to be like the interest in this potential of abstraction. Like, it can go into a really like positive, but also has this like misleading sides, or less like its backsides. That seems to be the ongoing challenge. And also meaning then going through this as a kind of criticality towards, of course, like what I would assume like a continuous question that you have towards film and the image that we are making. So would you understand that still then in a kind of structuralist film tradition, or?
Well, in a way. I mean, I certainly, in everything I do, I really want to draw attention to the fact that you're looking at something which is constructed, and in every way. And I guess on a very straightforward and literal level, I want people to not be sure whether to trust what they're being told here. I mean, this is actually an entirely factual piece of story, but it's I want people to actually question what they're looking at. But I'm also very interested in the kind of crossover between representation and abstraction, and how a representational image can actually read as abstract, and then when it's given a context, then it becomes representational. So. For example, the colour fields behind the text, and they're sampled from the layers of paint in the stick. So they're the equivalent of being kind of micro blow-ups of those layers of paint. But there's sort of different things going on. I also want it to function a little bit like a child's storybook or something. The way in which it has this kind of slightly big outline text and.
How were you relating the question of, like, of course we're reading the whole time the text, so we're creating our own voiceover, and then at a certain point you start to insert actually the actual voice. Could you tell a little about that momentum?
Okay. Well, it's very important. I'm very interested in kind of in intimacy, in kind of presence and intimacy and distance in film, and playing between those two things. And so with this film, it was very important to me that I used captions rather than a voiceover, because I didn't want any kind of intonation to the text. And some of the things that are being said are very loaded, particularly the part about being beaten, and I didn't want that to have any kind of intonation to it at all. And I love the kind of uncertainty of how one can use text in that way. And text has an enormous amount of authority when you blow it up big on a screen anyway, doesn't it? So little things can be given kind of immense significance. But at the same time, I didn't want the film to be a kind of cold and sort of distant film. So I basically do what my father used to do, which is make up songs and sing to himself while he was painting. So those kind of, and all of those sounds in the film, and the sounds of like the stirring tea in a teacup and things like that, they're all very much to do with the moment, to do with the present, to do with the now and the tactile. And so they're kind of this. Hopefully, there's this tension between the distance of the kind of coldness of the film in some ways, and then the intimacy in others.
Well, and they also bring in, of course, like when we are sitting in the dark cinema, they're bringing this momentum, they're really almost a physicality that really like strikes you when you're sitting in the cinema, creating a new awareness of where we are actually. That's what I really admire about how that kind of thing worked. So, do we have more questions from the audience? Is there anyone who has more questions? No one? So if you feel more comfortable maybe to ask one of us three something about the films, then maybe we are outside and we will be available, and maybe you join us outside.
Yeah, I would like to do a short announcement as well.
Sorry.
Anyone you feel like going out tonight, there's a flash art party at Hinterhof in München Steinerstraße 81, where I'll be DJing together with Sophie and Marianne over here, and some people from Geneva, so come there. And thanks for watching. Thank you, John.
Thank you all. Okay, thanks to you guys, and thanks for bringing the films to the wonderful program. Thank you. Yeah, have a nice evening. Thank you.